LRC show. I am your host, Taryn, and I am joined today by my buddy Donovan.
Yup.
And Will.
Hey.
And today, we are getting into something new and interesting. We're going to be doing a superhero tournament. A fight to the death. Well, it can also be incapacitation, right?
Yeah, depending on the person.
I mean, because we've got at least one hero on this list that might
unkillable.
Yeah, so I would count it. You don't necessarily have to kill him if you can keep him from, like, not killing you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Imprison them, whatever you gotta do, you know?
Let's define incapacitation as cease to make a threat.
Right. Yeah, cease to make a threat, or imprison in some way, or trap in some way to where, you know, the fight is over.
Knock him out, chain him up.
Right, whatever it is.
Slap him around a bit while they're unconscious, just for fun. Oh, sorry, we're doing heroes this time, right?
Yeah,
We're not gonna go with your sick fantasies, Donovan.
Yeah, maybe like anti-heroes at best would be.
There's a couple vigilantes on here that I think would not be above slapping someone around that's unconscious.
Yeah, but we don't have anybody like Red Hood on here that's just gonna outright shoot somebody.
All right. Before we get into that, let's you guys got your list of your characters you picked? Basically, we're just gonna go around the table and we're going to we'll just do it one at a time, just the way the list is, like how I wrote it, and we'll tell you each of our picks for this tournament. It is a 18-man tournament. There's going to be 2 preliminary fights, and we picked what we thought were some of the stronger heroes to fight in the preliminaries. That way, you know, they didn't get super, you know, just go through the entire list maybe. They may still do that. But yeah, we'll get into that. But first, there was 18 heroes, and we all got to pick, and we chose to do a tournament where they're not, it's not a list of any hero. These are what Donovan referred to as like street level heroes. So it's not that these guys aren't real heroes, just that they aren't your Supermans and your Thors and, you know, people that are like can destroy planets under certain circumstances type of stuff. You know, none of those types of people in this matchup, just to try to keep it a little bit more even.
It's one of those, if it takes extraordinary means or planning to destroy or incapacitate them, we kind of left them off the list.
Right.
There's still like a couple with certain circumstances and stuff, but those can be more easily explained on how you would do that, rather than, you know, you have a god level superhero who's just like, okay, well, he's immune to bullets and can shoot lasers out of his eyes and has frost breath and literally
can move a planet by
sun at one point, you know, like.
Yeah. So hopefully, you know, I mean, some of these characters are still pretty strong, so hopefully it won't get too crazy, but we tried to make it at least semi-fair.
Tried to make it at least arguable.
Right. Getting into that, we will start with down the list. We'll go Will, Donovan, and then me, Taryn. And we'll list off our heroes for you. So Will, go ahead.
So the first hero I picked was Spider-Man.
Lucky first draft pick. I got Moon Knight though, so I'm not entirely upset.
And I went with Wolverine. which is who we were talking about earlier about the potentially unkillable person here, because I think he's one of the most unkillable in the list for sure. So it under the
I think he's
circumstances
actually
of
regenerated
Wolverine,
from like a nuclear missile.
you don't have to kill him. You just have to incapacitate him in some way, which brought us into round 2 of our picks.
So my next pick was Cyborg, and I kind of didn't realize how cheap the Justice League Cyborg could get. So one of the things we'll probably be discussing when it gets closer is what level of Cyborg we're going at, because obviously there's the Teen Titans one all the way up to the Justice League one.
Yeah, and
So-
there's the whole we had discussed about when Cyborg basically takes over for Superman and he becomes really strong. So I think he's almost too strong for a lot of the people in this list at that point. So we're gonna try to figure out exactly when that time point is, and we're gonna kind of restrict him to that period. And
similar as with how we did the incapacitation rule for Wolverine.
Right. Just to prevent him from just one-shotting everybody on the list.
Right.
I chose Gambit after he chose Cyborg.
Gambit's pretty scary too. Under certain circumstances, he could be really scary. So then I picked Iron Man. He's a good old fan favorite. So was Wolverine. I feel like I picked like 2 really generic ones right off the bat.
Oh,
I mean, I chose
no.
Spider-Man.
That's true. And then that brought us into
The only one that
round 3.
I chose Nightcrawler next.
I was fucking jealous you got Nightcrawler. I really wanted Nightcrawler. I picked Nightcrawler when me and Donovan had first discussed doing something like this.
He's always been one of my favorites. So, I thought nobody's chosen him yet. I guess I'll just choose Nightcrawler.
I didn't think anybody would pick him that quickly. I thought that was one I could hold in my back pocket for a minute. I was wrong.
It was on my mind too. I was going for a 3rd or 4th round pick of him.
Yeah, that's where I was. My mind was. I was like, all right, I don't need to get anybody too vital right away. I was like, I can buff out my picks with a couple strongish type of guys, and then, because here's the thing, I picked Iron Man, and see, I was the 3rd pick, right? So in both of those cases, Will went hard right away. I mean, he was trying to go Doctor Strange first pick, and we were like, all right,
I don't
you're
know a
out of
ton
your
about
mind.
superheroes.
Doctor Strange is
so-
can go back through time and he's crazy. He's real strong. So he's gonna have to be in the God fights.
Yeah.
But then you went with Spider-Man, who I still think is real tough. I think he's a pretty strong hero. So, and then Donovan with Moon Knight, not quite as scary, but I still felt like, I had to come with something strong. That's why I went with Wolverine, because I was feeling weak.
But I picked a lot of underdog heroes in this fight.
Yeah, then then you went with Gambit on your 2nd pick.
And Green Arrow on my 3rd.
It's true. Yeah, and I went with Iron Man because Will went with Cyborg, and I was like, man, Cyborg's strong.
I need someone with lasers to counter his lasers.
I was like, who can counter lasers? I was like, more lasers! Like you were saying, Will went with Nightcrawler, and then you went with Green Arrow for your 2nd pick, who is actually pretty awesome if you dive deep. Green Arrow has defeated Superman under certain circumstances before, so Just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
He's nothing.
He had a Green Arrow in that point that Superman was weak against, but yeah.
I'm just saying. It happened once.
It was there.
Yeah, I mean,
We all saw it.
he was also being helped by Batman, so, and he also, I'm pretty sure, lost an arm. But whatever.
I don't think he lost an arm in that incident. I think he had already lost an arm. But whatever.
Oh, did he?
Oh,
I thought maybe he lost it in the incident. Maybe he had already lost an arm. No, I think he lost it in the fight because he had to fucking. Because he was like, that was what was so epic about it. He ended up. No, we're not gonna get into it yet. I'm not gonna.
okay. Yeah.
That's probably gonna be a talking point for his strength later. So.
Well, it's a 3rd round pick for you, I believe.
Yeah, so I went with Colossus, who I think is he's tough, but he's still sort of he's kind of a niche hero, right? He's not as big of a name as some of the other people on the list. He's kind of more of a Gambit level hero. I mean, they're both X-Men.
Biggest claim to fame right now in mainstream media is the Deadpool movies.
Right, and that was almost sheer dumb luck, I feel. Like, what X-Men can we use in these movies? And they're like, Colossus would be cool. Yeah, let's do Colossus. Like, I feel like that was really a
we can afford one X-Man for this first movie.
Right.
They're like,
which are we doing?
Let's do the big metal guy. I think that'd be funny.
Right. Who's cool, but like would be cheap.
Well, the only other thing he had appeared in was, I believe,
X2.
One of the
Yeah, well,
the best X-Men movie.
I say it's more who's cool, but if this movie doesn't do well, the fans aren't going to be angry at us.
Bro, I remember how amped I was when in the scene where they stormed the school and Colossus was turns to metal and blocks all the bullets. Really, I was like, yo, it's Colossus.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Is I believe it was Fox who owned the X-Men until the Disney acquisition. They had still had Hugh Jackman's Wolverine licensed. Every other character had fallen out of license, or the licensing for it had switched to a different actor's combination. And so now a lot of the X-Men is up in the air and is probably going to be starting to appear in Marvel Cinematic.
Well, that brought us into our round 4 picks.
This is where I was starting to feel like, okay, I don't know a lot about superheroes, so I'm just going to start picking people I like, and I surprised everybody by picking Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, that one was out of left field for me. I did not expect him to go Rocket Raccoon. But I also didn't expect him to go Nightcrawler, so you had kind of thrown me for like 2 rounds in a row. Yeah. And then Donovan's 4th round pick.
Yeah, Iron Fist. Sticking with the Marvel.
I was not expecting you to go with Iron Fist. I was like, I mean, you'd been going, underdogs, but like Iron Fist is kind of like the underdog of the underdogs, even. I feel like.
Yeah.
Part of the Defenders, he's got an actual interesting story, but he
wasn't even good enough to get onto like a real team.
And we'll actually Rocket Raccoon with the Guardians. I mean, come on now. Anyway,
that's a galactic team.
But you could argue technically the Guardians fight more important villains than even the Avengers do in some ways.
I will say that due to his origins and stuff like that, he does actually have ties to the Ten Rings and stuff like that. So he is part of a bigger syndicate and stuff within the universes. But he is, that street level, like top tier street level kind of hero. So.
Yeah, well, and kind of we had discussed before, there might be some stuff we don't even know about him that might bring him up in a power level that,
Right.
might be unexpected.
Yeah.
So then that brought me to my pick, which I went with Nightwing, and I feel like Donovan probably saw that coming.
I did, and I was actually gonna pick Nightwing in 5th round, so.
Yeah, so I went with Nightwing because my personal favorite hero is Batman, and we had talked about it beforehand. Batman isn't allowed to be on this list, even though he doesn't have superpowers. He has such a long list of feats and things that he's done that you can argue a lot of points to him in a god level fight, because he has literally defeated so many god level beings that it's arguable that he could beat most of the people in this list. But that's just whatever. That's a separate fucking argument. He doesn't have powers, but he almost does, just based on how much they've written into his character, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's why
5th
Batman
round.
wasn't allowed to be in the part of the list, and that's why I picked Nightwing, because he's Batman's apprentice.
The closest thing to Batman we could get.
Right? So that brought us into what, the 5th round?
Yep. And having always been a big fan of the old Teen Titans, and at this point just picking people I was a fan of, I chose Beast Boy. I would have chosen Raven, but then I realized Raven is probably too broken.
It depends on if she has come to terms with her past and absorbed
with her
the power
father
of
or
her
not.
father.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, even
there's
still,
already one
she's
hero
like,
on this list. Yeah.
she's like the most OP of the Teen Titans, even still.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I was like,
yeah.
I seriously, for the last pick, I was like, maybe I'll do Starfire. Then we'll have pretty much everybody but Raven from the original Teen Titans. But I was like, nah. But yeah, that was my 5th pick, Beast Boy.
Yeah, I went with Iceman. He actually, teams up with Spider-Man at some points, part of the X-Men, like.
I actually almost went with Iceman in one of the earlier rounds. I had thought about going with Iceman, and I don't know, I've kind of wanted to pick him, and then I was like, I don't know. I don't really know a lot about him. I just think he's kind of cool.
His X-Men days, he's not very. He's still learning his powers. They're not as strong. Blah blah blah. Yada yada.
Yeah, but he can do some cool shit.
He can do some real cool shit that people just don't really expect. So.
And everybody, whenever they see they show somebody skating on the ice, everyone's like, "Oh, Frozone from like Incredibles," because he does that. And I was like, "No, that was an Iceman thing. That was he." No.
Yeah.
That's where they got that from. That's literally his whole thing. Is like he skates around on the. I used to have a miniature of Iceman where he's doing that, like on the ice.
Well, and that people don't realize that the Incredibles and
all
like
I'm
a lot
saying
of the
is that it's mad disrespectful to Iceman and his accomplishments to accredit Frozone with fucking ice surfing. That's all I'm saying.
There are a lot of rips off of actual established superheroes is what it is.
Yeah.
It's like
a
lot of them
that's the whole point
on their tropes. Yeah, so yeah, Frozone is literally like the Disney analog to Iceman, but now Disney owns Iceman, so they can just,
Use
put him
Iceman.
into the Incredibles 3.
Donovan, don't make it weird.
Too late.
That brought it to my pick. I went with Booster Gold. who I don't know if you guys really know much about. I feel like he's kind of a slept-on hero.
Seen him
Really.
before? I don't know what any of his powers are. So
Yeah, so he's like he's from the future. He's like from future Gotham, I think, or something like that. And it's either future Gotham or future Metropolis. And he stole like a bunch of technology and like went back into the past. And originally he's kind of sort of a not a total villain, but kind of a bad character, and then he becomes like he's like a fake hero. He's like pretending, he's kind of like Mysterio or something. Like he's like pretending to be a hero, and then he actually does become a hero. And actually more recently he was like the leader of the Justice League for a while and stuff. So he's
But
actually
a
done
lot
quite a
of
bit.
a lot of why he became a hero has to do with oh god, I can't remember his name. He's, if I'm correct on his lore, he's like some immortal Egyptian, like cursed by immortal objects, kind of like
I think you're
Hawkman and
thinking of
Hawkgirl.
somebody else.
Am
what are
I?
you talking about? I know he was
Oh,
friends with the original Blue Beetle.
I a lot of what ends up making Booster Gold I mean, I don't know. Maybe you're right. I don't know. I just know I know Batman had a huge influence in Booster Gold becoming as
Well, and
big as he was as
I
well.
I don't know a ton about comic books, but I do know that, and I don't know a lot about Booster Gold, but I do know that like he was friends with the original or it was the no, it was the second. He was friends with the second Blue. That was like a big thing in Infinite Crisis. I know is that him and the second Blue Beetle were like friends,
Yeah. Well,
and
that isn't
Yeah,
that the one
that's
where Booster Gold is the leader of the Justice League?
I
I'm not
believe.
sure.
Well, no, because doesn't Cyborg take over as leader?
We're going to be learning
The
as we
one I'm
go,
thinking
people.
of is in the one that I'm thinking of, it's the one where somebody warns him that Superman and if Diana can't be together, and if they are, then it's going to be like the end of the world, basically. And at some point, like a bunch of the Justice League members die in random things, and then they get betrayed by one of the people in the Justice League, and he kills a bunch of them, and then the Justice League disbands because like Booster Gold can't keep everybody together. But we'll delve into it more.
Yeah.
So that brings us into our last round picks, and I said make them count, and I think you guys made them count a lot more than I did. So I'll tell you that.
So
Yeah, but you went hard in the beginning, so it's okay.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to be more creative here.
yeah, so I there were a lot of heroes that I was like, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. And it took me a long time to come to a decision, and I came to Static Shock as my last pick, or Static as he's usually just called, as Donovan pointed out, you nerd.
Yeah, well, so yeah, Static Shock was technically the WP Kids
Yeah.
show, but I think most people our generation know him as Static Shock, probably.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, yeah, they have a lot of people call him Static or Static X in the comics. But if you search Static X on Google to try to find pictures of him, you will only find the band Static X, and that is not helpful.
Yeah.
But if you type in Static Shock, you will find a bunch of pictures of him.
So my last pick I gave to Blue Beetle. I feel like, sorry, I feel like I needed a little power in my lineup.
I feel like that was your strongest pick of your lineup, to be honest,
Yeah.
because he's pretty tough. I mean,
Less
he's
the
one of the people that
underdog,
was
more
thrown into the
the
preliminaries because of how tough he is. So.
yeah. So
Well, you know, that's why I asked which Blue Beetle do you mean, because the second Blue Beetle functions more like Batman in that he's just a normal guy with like a bunch of equipment.
so
So
mine is actually Jaime.
yeah,
He's a teenager, and the Blue Beetle is actually the Blue Scarab, and it's its own
yeah.
like sentient alien like mech suit essentially.
Yeah, and that thing is nutty. He does some
Yeah.
crazy stuff. Well, that's why I thought maybe that's the one you were talking about, Will, is because if I recall, he's cool with the Blue Beetle in that one as well. And one of the things that that guy does to betray them is he sends the Blue Beetle away to like a planet of like crazy fucking monster aliens, and the Blue Beetle survives, like trapped on
Yeah.
but he's like trapped on this planet like with crazy monster aliens, and he just kills them all until somebody saves them.
Right.
But yeah, that was my final pick.
Yeah, and then I wanted to go with somebody, you know, a little more niche, so I went with Ghost Rider because I've always thought he was really cool. But you know, I don't think he's really that strong, but you know, maybe we'll be surprised.
But doesn't he have that? Now, this might not be as big a thing in a competition of heroes, but doesn't he have that gaze that like kills people based on the sins they've?
Yeah, I mean, he's got stuff.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He's got some crazy stuff, so like he
Well,
might
Yeah.
have a
and
chance.
you say it might not have much bearing in a competition of heroes, but even heroes can fall susceptible to penance stare. Heroes
Right.
aren't
That's
immune
true.
from
It's just
sin.
basically
They're
the
just,
yeah.
Yeah, so
like
maybe he
there's
has a better chance than what I'm giving him credit for. I felt like that was one of my weaker picks personally.
he's definitely niche. I'll give it that. It's he's strong niche, but it all depends on which iteration of Ghost Rider you're really referencing.
Well, and that's why, you know, we're kind of for this competition, we're pulling from pretty much anything that you can show that they've done before, you know. Obviously there's going to be ridiculous things that certain heroes have done before, and we're going to take those things into account with a grain of salt. But you know, if you can prove that your hero has done something insane, then you know that you can prove it. And here's the thing as well, with us picking all of these heroes, it's not so we're not gonna it's not just gonna be, oh well, Donovan, Iron Fist is your hero, you have to defend him. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
we're gonna all come up with the best reasons possible for why either one could potentially win. Obviously, we're gonna have a little bit of bias here, one
Well,
way or
and
the other.
that's because you had spoken. We had actually you and I had come up with our own bracket and tier list and everything, but between the two of us, we would pretty much always be at a standstill generally.
Right.
So now with three people, even with biases and everything, there's always a tiebreaker. You know, there's always someone who can jump in and go, okay, well, these are the facts. This is my opinion. This is who wins, kind of thing. So it makes it a little less, you know, back and forth into nothingness and a lot more like
We may get like
actual,
two
like,
votes one way or the other. That way we can
right.
actually definitively be like, all right, well, then he's stronger or he's stronger.
That's, you know, it's hard to argue with. That's how the votes went when there's three
Right.
people
Yeah.
rather
It's
than,
just,
well,
well,
we
you win
each
some,
voted
you
for
lose
this
one.
one. So right.
Yeah. So, and that's. If I'm correct in assuming that that's how we're going to determine who wins each round, is there'll be a vote at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna take everything into account at the end, and yeah, we'll pretty much we'll take a total tally, but it's sort of like what we did with Pokemon and Digimons. You know, where
Okay.
we really determine who had had the better reasons, and who could we really determine that would be more powerful.
And I think if at any point we get any kind of like comments or interactions that are saying, I think you may have missed this point or that point, we can take it into kind of consideration and go, okay, well, let's at the beginning of next episode or whatever, point these things out and,
Well, and well,
audit
I
of the
mean,
votes.
the thing is, we're gonna miss stuff.
We are.
Yeah.
People are I'm not that worried about going back. People are just gonna kind of have to get over the fact that this is for fun. I mean, we're doing this for fun. And we're gonna try to come up with as many statistics and reasons for why these people can really fight each other. But at the end of the day, like, it's not. This is just our opinions, right? It's if you think your hero should have won in a fight where we put up Spider-Man versus Nightcrawler and Spider-Man wins, and you really think Nightcrawler should have won, then you're totally entitled to think that. You know what I mean? It's not.
Just make sure you leave it in the comments below.
Right.
We're not telling you what to think.
Yeah, well, we're not saying this is definitively the right way it would go. We're just saying this is just our opinion.
Yeah.
This is the way we think it would go.
To discuss fictional people with superpowers, okay?
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just a fun discussion for us to talk about pitting these characters up against each other to see who would win. Yes. Gaze upon it with your eyes.
As opposed to
your mouth. Leave your mouth out of it.
Stop licking your screens right now.
Yes,
weirdos.
It does not taste good. But it is very flavorful. See the matchups before you. So we determined the matchups based on who we thought would be the best matchups. Like I had said before, we put up there's two preliminary fights. So the first one we got is Blue Beetle versus Booster Gold. Like I had said before, I didn't know how much you guys really knew about Booster Gold, but he has a bunch of like futuristic tech and stuff. That's why I thought he'd be a good matchup for Blue Beetle. Is because I know he's got that alien tech beetle thing, so I kind of thought,
right,
they might be a little bit more even in terms of like equipment and tech, so it might be a decent matchup. Booster may end up getting his ass whooped. We'll see. And then over on the other side of the bracket with our other preliminary fight, I think Donovan, you had recommended Wolverine versus Colossus, right?
So yeah, my reasoning behind this was Wolverine's nigh unkillable, and I mean Colossus is also
almost unkillable as well, except for maybe against Wolverine.
Right.
I think their fight would be a very, very long fight for sure.
Yeah.
Like the biggest issue I had was if they were separated in the bracket, it's it's pretty much an unfair setup on anyone who's facing them. They're gonna sweep. Put them against each other, it takes one of them out of the picture at least, and they're also kind of like the best to go head to head because it's the adamantium claws versus the super steel,
whatever the hell Colossus is made out of. We'll have to figure that out.
But yeah, so it's definitely, and in the prelims, I feel like they both have a better chance of anyone else of going 4 fights rather than just the 3. You had said something about healing them up between. I think that's a good, like any like super detrimental wounds and broken arms.
Well, I
shit
just think
like
in
that.
general, I
But
just think they should go return back to full. I mean, I don't think we should.
Right.
I don't think we should consider it like, oh well, Blue Beetle's fighting Ghost Rider now, but
Yeah.
technically he just fought Booster Gold, so he's probably got a bunch of laser. I don't want to try to anticipate those kinds of scenarios, like into, like especially in the final rounds. But I would rather just be like, they took a sensu bean after every match, and you know what I mean. So fucking, they're fun after each
it's
match.
still
It's like a total reset, right? It's a fight to the death, but they're not hurt. They don't
It's
carry
still
on
an
any
interesting
wounds.
matchup because they're both arguably the most naturally durable, let's say, of the
Right.
picks.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't arguing that. I just mean, like what he was saying. I didn't want to like carry on wounds into a next fight.
Right.
But if
I
you could
wasn't
survive
thinking
the
wounds
fight,
necessarily, but like a fatigue almost, which could just be a just base negative to all stats on the later fights kind of thing. So it's one of those,
I feel like that takes away from having the matchup though. Like I want to have the full out fight between the two characters.
Yeah.
Like at their peak, I want them to be able to fight each other because then otherwise people are gonna be like, well, he only lost because he was tired. I mean, people are gonna be like that regardless, but I don't know. I just don't like the idea of there being a fatigue level. I'd rather it just be that there's. I mean, obviously, there's gonna be that within their own fights, right?
right.
Who can fucking. I mean, that's one of the greater things about Iron Fist, I'd say, is he could probably fight for a really long fucking time.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us into like our stat categories too.
Yeah, I mean, that's yeah. Their endurance is gonna be a.
I see like 4 clear stats that we can go with currently, and that's strength,
that'll be a
stamina.
good segue into. We're coming up with stat. We're gonna come up with stat blocks for these guys to pit them up against each other. So you were saying I mean, strength. Yeah, I think is an obvious one. I'll write them down.
Strength, stamina.
I think durability might be better than.
Well, stamina is different
that's
than durability, because I would argue that Colossus has a lot of durability, but he may not have a lot of stamina.
Well, I would classify like durability into the third category I was thinking, which would be powers.
Well,
and that's just like a general rating of the overall powers in general, what exactly can he do, what, that kind of stuff.
So I was thinking, okay, you got strength. I like agility as one. I think stamina should be one. I think that durability should be its own thing based on how many people we have here with like mecha suits and things of that nature. Even Iceman, I would argue, has like more durability than Nightwing, right?
Well, so I was gonna say, instead of doing something like intelligence, I think we should do something like versatility, like the amount of things they can do with the tools that they have.
Well,
right?
and
Like,
that
I
was
didn't say intelligence.
Yeah, well, no, I was just, strategic, like their ability to strategize will be an important thing with like people like Nightwing or Rocket Raccoon. Like,
so strength, agility, stamina, versatility.
Yeah, like versatility or flexibility, maybe.
Yeah, I like
adaptability. Their ability to adapt to not just who they're fighting, but their surroundings and such, using it to their advantage.
I would sum it up as their ability to use the tools that they have.
I'm gonna use adaptability because I think that describes pretty accurately. That's gonna play a big factor into the random arenas thing. is who can adapt quicker to being thrown into some random fucking place that they're maybe not comfortable with typically. So I got strength, agility, stamina, adaptability. I mean, I guess we could do powers and just put durability in powers, but I feel like maybe we should do powers and equipment as well, because I think that those should maybe be separate, because like somebody like Nightwing doesn't really have any powers, so his...
You could sum it up with ability, maybe. Like, powers and...
Well, I think you should be separate. That's what I'm saying. I think I don't want to combine them. I think there should be 2 categories. I think there should be... I almost think there should be 3. I think there should be a durability, a powers, and an equipment. Because I think that... I
could see us being fine with just powers and equipment. Because I feel like durability can still fall under, like... someone like Nightwing who doesn't have powers, he's not as durable, but his equipment provides, it could also provide durability with armor or whatever, like Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle could take a punch from Colossus probably, and it'd hurt, but he'd survive, whereas Nightwing would probably have, some
just depending on the hero, the durability is just going to get pushed into powers or equipment, depending on the character.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine with me. What should these scores be? Like 1 through 5, 1 through 10, F through S. I mean, how do you guys want to do this?
I think personally I would do 1 through 5. On the sole basis that, if we go 1 through 10, it almost gets a little bit too specific for the argument we're having, where it's like, well, I don't know. I feel like 1 through 10 is too specific, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, if we're going to do 1 through 5, I think we should do the D through S, just because it's a little more classy, and I like giving people letters for their abilities.
It's fine with me.
I mean, if you guys are cool with that.
Donovan was going to say something.
I was going to say 1 through 5 as well. I was going to just suggest, like, numbers or stars or something, just to make it easier to, like, average out into a total score. But we can
well, let's just
we can just assign
letters,
assign numbers to it, and a plus or a minus if it's close to going up in the next rank or down.
I mean, with only 5 letters, it'll be easy to figure out the average.
Yeah. So I'm down for that.
So how are we saying D being the lowest person within this list, or D is like pedestrian level?
I would say D is, I think it's easier if we make D like they're not significantly different than an ordinary human, like a normative human.
Or at least the lowest you could be and still be considered a hero.
Yeah, basically.
I would consider it like if you were a fit or active or smart or kind of like human, like above average human kind of thing.
Right.
Like...
So like in terms of powers, right? Like Green Arrow would be like a D because he doesn't technically have any powers.
Right.
Right.
The same with Nightwing. Yeah, like but their equipment is going to get way more than somebody like Beast Boy, who is probably going to have a lot of powers, but not going to have shit for equipment.
Beast Boy's only equipment is I don't know what happens to his clothes when he transforms. That's it.
He's got a special uniform.
That's it. Yeah. A lot of people.
So my thing is, like, you could still argue some of them higher than Ds, especially with like Green Arrow or Nightwing, with their martial arts prowess and stuff
But I would
like
argue
that.
that's goes more into their adaptability than their powers.
There.
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I'm saying though is
Like
that
we
you're
powers
making
should be
D the least you have to.
specifically like, you know, powers like you got
Specifically like
Right.
superpowers
now
kind
on
of
the
thing.
flip side of that, are we considering S the strongest you can be among this list, or are we considering S like S strength is Superman strength? So like nobody on this list will ever reach an S type of shit. I think we should do it just within the lists.
I think it should be capped at the list.
For the
as
upper
well.
for the upper limit, yeah, I would. At the list, yeah, that's because then we can use this system for whenever we do something like this.
I mean,
Just,
well, that's
you know.
the only argument up with is if we want to connect the same grading system with the other heroes down the line, then it's not gonna line up the same. Like you
He
can't say
becomes the S
Right.
of this list,
Exactly.
and S becomes the top of the other list, kind of thing.
yeah, it's not gonna be
So-
like equivalence.
Then I have a proposal, which is that, and this is something we can decide later, but for each of those statistics, I think the first thing we need to do is determine which hero has the S in that statistic. Like only have one S per statistic on the list.
Or at least an S that we can compare it to.
Right.
You know, like Superman for strength, for example. Like we can be like,
Yeah.
okay, well, he's clearly insanely strong, so we're gonna just assume that that, you know, obviously there's going to be varying degrees even within the S, but I would argue, you know, two S's fighting each other, they've got equivalent strengths to a degree to where they could probably hurt each other.
Well, I think we can find most of the answers to all of that within our preliminary fights, and that's kind of why we set them up that way. Is you between strength and power and adaptability.
It's better that we choose a standard and like an S standard, and then say like nobody on this list will necessarily reach the S standard.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of
I kind of like that better.
I like the only reason I like that is because if we do decide to do the God tournament later on, then we can still use the same standard and be like, okay, well these people actually are S's in certain areas.
That's fair. So it's kind of being capped at like an A for pretty much everything.
Yeah, probably
for everyone.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
So you know, like
A is probably the highest any of these
general-
people would go.
is if they can pick a car up and throw it around like a toy, probably an S.
I mean, you might be able to argue an S for certain, like,
Well,
for
that's
maybe
like
equipment and adaptability.
yeah.
I mean, in terms of just like
Yeah.
how how useful it is and stuff, and how, I mean, I would argue a moon, well, like a Green Arrow, even like it, you know, has a lot more adaptability than even some of the characters that are gonna be in the God fights. You know, his adaptability is insanely high. So I would argue there's potentially some S's in here, but that's semantics.
And I think that can be actually delved into within the actual, like, if there's a good enough argument that it should be an S rank, that on something it, you know, like you said, Green Arrow with his adaptability, or even Nightwing with his adaptability, like both of them are fairly up there in their ability to figure something out pretty quick and kind of, you know, use that new information to better their chances.
So with that, I think we come up with some arenas for them to fight. How many arenas do you think we should have?
I think 5 or
How many-
6 would
How many
be
fights total are there going to be?
1.
15?
No.
16? One fight? No, I don't think it's more than that. In fact,
Two
I'm positive there's more than one fight.
preliminary. 2
6, 7, 8, 9,
preliminary.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah,
Right?
that's what I thought.
So if there's going to be
Yeah.
15 fights, I propose we come up with 5 arenas that will each be used 3 times.
So if it is used more than, so if it's used 3 times, then it's taken out?
Yeah, that would be my proposal. That way we can ensure all of them are equally used.
All right, I'm cool with that. And that'll basically that'll make it so the last fight is definite. We're gonna know what the last arena is going into the last fight.
Yeah.
There's gonna no randomization. All right, I'm cool with
So
that.
I would propose a cityscape, obviously.
I was gonna
maybe you want to
I
do
was
a
gonna say
specific
like
city. I don't know.
I was gonna argue like Metropolis or New York City or Gotham City, something like that. You guys have a preference?
I don't have a preference for the city. I think, in theory, all the cities are similar. You know, the same. I mean, they're all the same, obviously, but
let's go with Gotham City just to make it something specific and kind of give it a little more flavor.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, so Gotham City is one of the arenas. I was thinking something like the moon, like a low gravity type of fight.
I would say more like a like space station would be better, or something like that, or a moon base, maybe.
Like the tower from the Justice League. Their orbital space hideout. Gravity turned off.
All right, so because that would be like more close quarters, right? If it was on the space station.
That's true.
That was my thing. Yes, I was kind of thinking
we could do
more of an
Mars under the or something. I don't know the gravity situation on Mars. Because my issue with the moon is there's like no atmosphere.
Well, I mean, I would argue most of these characters can, or we could just come up with a reason for like immediately, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be the moon. It can be a moon like, I mean, arena. It doesn't have to be specific. It can be a moon with an atmosphere.
Low gravity.
It's the whole point is just that it's like the moon, that it's a low gravity, like kind of craters, like wasteland-esque sort of fight.
I'm sure there's dimensions you could find in somewhere that have that parameter in them. Atmosphere, but low gravity. So let's call that arena low gravity environment then.
Low gravity asteroid, maybe?
That works, yeah. Maybe somewhere like what is it, Nowhere from Guardians of the Galaxy. I know it's not low gravity necessarily in there, but
A giant celestial's head.
yeah. It's kind of space station-y, but it's big enough, and it probably has areas that would be low gravity.
I mean, I'd be down for it. There's technically atmosphere, and like Will said, there could be areas of low gravity that are probably more open than the metropolitan areas of that specific substation-like area.
Yeah.
All right, Nowhere Space Station it is.
I was kind of thinking a like situation room X-Men style, where it's not just like, you know, a hostile environment. It's an environment that's actively like attacking, kind of thing.
And we need like a jungle type area too, I think, like a wilderness. I don't think we need to come up with anywhere specific for that. I just think jungle will do.
I think specifically it should be jungle fight near a river, like in a waterfall.
Sounds good. That's 4, which means 1 more.
I was kind of thinking volcano.
Get out of my head.
Volcano fight. I mean, that's a lava would be a really good way for some of these weaker characters to get through the durability of some of these other guys. So
Yep, I'm fine with that. The only one
volcano, he's not probably gonna
hey,
get
he
back
might
up
be. He got a pretty
anytime
good
soon.
chance.
the only other one I was thinking of is an Arctic environment, but I kind of like volcano better. So
Top of a volcano in Antarctica.
yes, Arctic volcano. What is even that?
Volcano. Yes, I'm down. Totally. It's that one up in Alaska, bro.
Are we actually gonna go
There's
with
a
Arctic volcano?
I'm so down for Arctic volcano.
All right. Arctic
It was a
volcano
villain
it
who
is.
couldn't decide whether to put his
Well,
headquarters in a volcano or the
so-
Arctic, and he said, "Why not both?"
If we're gonna go to Origin Story Alley real quick, I believe we had the premise that they are actually being, sent to these places by villains to fight to the death kind of thing.
Yep.
And so it would make sense that they had a dispute on whether it should be an Arctic arena or a volcano arena. So they compromised.
Well, we've got our heroes picked, we've got our stats that we're going to determine them by, and we've got our arenas. Did I say arenas? I don't think I did. I don't know. And with that, we've got all of the pieces to our fight. So now we just need to determine what we're gonna do first next week.
I'm kind of partial to the Blue Beetle Booster Gold fight.
I don't mind which. I'll discuss whichever.
Alright.
I mean, if you look at it, both our preliminary fights are like teammates who are fighting each other. So I think it's gonna be good either which way. But
Yeah, so
I have a hat in the ring on Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. So
let's go with next week we will be doing Blue Beetle versus Booster Gold. And when we see you again, we will determine the winner.
All right.
Thank you for everybody for joining us today. If you liked what you saw here, be sure to join us again next week at the same time, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know the deal. Come on. What are you on YouTube for? You don't know the deal. Bye.
Bye.
see ya.